Coming up on Network Africa, Somalia Al-Shabaab claims former lawmaker was among the drivers in Tuesday's double-car bomb attack on the African Union's main peacekeeping base in Somalia. And Malawi government arrests hyena man who sleeps with young girls for a fee as part of his initiation rites. And tornado hits Gauteng in South Africa. Severe damage is reported in Tembisa. About 400 people already homeless. We have details for you in just a moment as Network Africa starts right now. Everyone, welcome to the program. I am Adeshewa Josh. We start with the breaking news. Mr. John Momo, the chairman of Channels Media Group, has been elected chairman of the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria. At the annual delegate conference today in Abuja, Mr. Momo polled 51 votes to beat his opponent, Abbas Dalatu from Freedom Radio Kano, who scored 12 votes. This is the first time a private television media owner would be holding this position. In his acceptance speech, the chairman said under his leadership, the immediate focus would be to define a new line of thoughts using the TAIT agenda. This includes, quote, reinforcing existing structures of our association to help broadcasters seize opportunities in the digital age, advocacy that would ensure policymakers are kept abreast of issues that affect the broadcasting industry, introduction of innovations that would allow Nigerian broadcasters to construct new services to match evolving and flexible business models, and finally, training of personnel aimed at exposing them to new ideas and new technologies, end of quote. Congratulations to Mr. Momo and indeed the whole family here at Channels Television. Let's move on now. Shocking revelations are beginning to emerge after the suicide attack on the African Union's main peacekeeping base in Somalia, which occurred yesterday. Al-Shabaab militants claim a former lawmaker in Somalia parliament who turned Al-Shabaab militants is one of the drivers in Tuesday's double-car bomb attack. 53-year-old Salah Nur Ismail is believed to have joined Al-Shabaab in 2010. He quit the Somali parliament in 2010 after denouncing lawmakers as infidels. Salah, alongside two other suicide bombers, blew themselves up near the city's main airport in Mogadishu, and that's a secure green zone for UN operations, the 22,000-strong African Union Peace Force, and foreign embassies. The attack claimed the lives of 13 people. The United Nations is warning South Sudan's President Salva Kiir as Kiir begins issuing political appointments in the newly formed government. The United Nations insists any political appointments must be consistent with a peace deal that ended nearly 2 years of civil war after Kiir replaced his vice president and rival Riek Machar. Well, this comes as President Machar indeed did that replace Kiir on Monday with General Taban Dengai, a former chief opposition negotiator who has broken ranks with Machar and has the support of some other opposition members. Kiir's appointment of Dengai, a former minister of mining, came after Kiir issued an ultimatum last week demanding that Machar contact him within 48 hours and return to Juba to salvage the peace deal or face replacement. Machar left the South Sudanese capital Juba earlier this month after an eruption of violence in the city when forces loyal to Kiir and Machar battled each other for several days with tanks, helicopters and other heavy weapons. An August peace agreement states that the vice president must be chosen by South Sudan armed opposition Machar when this deal is being put in place. Then as South Sudan continues to reel from its political turmoil, more South Sudanese are fleeing their homes as a result of the unrest in the capital, Juba. The International Organization for Migration set up a primary health clinic at a transit center to provide basic health services to people displaced by this recent fighting.
We have currently set up a health clinic here. It's a primary health care unit. We established it on July 13th, immediately after the fighting, immediately after the ceasefire, and we were able to get access to the site here. So we're seeing on average between 150 to 220 patients a day. And the top morbidities are generally malaria, because we are in the rainy season, which is to be expected, as well as ARIs, which are acute respiratory infections. We're also seeing a lot of skin diseases and some acute watery diarrhea. And now, as we know, the cholera outbreak has been declared in Juba, and we have seen some suspected cases of cholera here at the site. Last week, the Ministry of Health issued a press statement and held a press conference to issue formally the cholera alert for Juba City, Juba Town. And what we have seen so far is between 6 cases, specifically at our clinic here in Umas Tongping. And what we're doing is we're working with the Ministry of Health and partners to try to do triage as best possible. The current protocols on the ground are that only severely dehydrated patients should be referred to the CTC, which is the Cholera Treatment Center being run by the Ministry of Health and MSF at Juba Teaching Hospital.
Now, many of these displaced Sudanese are now believed to be taking shelter also in Uganda. Let's bring in Joshua Poro from Uganda with the latest. Thank you so much for joining us. Your country is bearing the brunt of the fallout in South Sudan. What can you tell us about the refugee crisis you are now dealing with?
Well, I think Uganda has been a harbor to millions of refugees within this region. If you remember, those coming in from the Democratic Republic of Congo, those coming in from Burundi, those coming in from Rwanda, and now those coming in from the South Sudan. In the last 6 months alone, we've had about 38,000 refugees coming in, but now we have over 4,000 refugees coming in daily. If you put that in 6 months, you have about 728,000 refugees coming in the period 6 months, which means it has doubled from the last 6 months of the entire year of 2016. Now, that's very, very difficult to handle. It definitely puts a constraint on the resources of the country, Uganda as itself, but not forgetting that we have support from United Nations agencies like the UNHCR. But you see, what happens is UNHCR will provide, let me say, the tents, the shelter, and then World Food Program might come to give a ration of food, but the government of Uganda as well has to make a contribution to all these things. So we have to look at finding the land where these people are going to settle. That means displacing other people, and then we have to make sure that security is in. So I think government resources at this point in time are quite constrained, but the president yesterday did say that the borders are open to our neighbors to come and seek refuge, because South Sudan are the people who give us blood. They give us a lot of business. So if we do not shelter these people or take care of them, then I think at this point in time we shall be a very, very bad neighbor. So it's a constraint, but the government of Uganda has opened its borders, welcoming all refugees coming in from the South Sudan.
This is obviously a huge responsibility, as you have reeled out in your explanation for your government. Obviously, the real cause of this issue is the fallout between the leading figures in South Sudan. Has your government gone to the very root of this problem, which is to try to calm frayed nerves in South Sudan?
Well, you see, if you realize the government of Uganda was in the first place responsible for the negotiations that took place in the South Sudan. We took the first step towards negotiating peace in the South Sudan between President Salva Kiir and his first Deputy Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar. But you see, the agreement not yet quite much. The negotiations have been there. The UPDF was in South Sudan to try and calm these people down, to try and maintain peace. The UPDF pulled out. After 4 days, just 4 days, the fighting began again. You see, so it's a very difficult situation, and so many analysts in the country are now saying that most probably South Sudan just has to take a difficult decision. Take out these people, Dr. Riek Machar and Salva Kiir, put them aside, front a new face, a new person, someone who is impartial to the system. And I'm sure that the government of Uganda has done all they can, because if you realize at this point in time, so many businessmen of Ugandan origin who are trading in South Sudan and sending foodstuff, selling foodstuff and making so many supplies to the government of South Sudan have not been paid in billions of shillings. But you know what the government of Uganda is doing? They are going to pay these traders on behalf of South Sudan and later settle out their issues with South Sudan. So, that's the extent to which the government of Uganda is going to support the government of South Sudan. But we shall harbour these people, we shall give them a home, we shall provide them with protection until a time when they're ready to go back home.
Thank you so much, Joshua Perot, for bringing us the latest on this issue. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa. Let's take a break on the show. When we come back, Malawi government arrests Zaina man who sleeps with young girls for a fee as part of his initiation rites. We have details on the story in just a moment. Do stay with us.